Tēnā tātou katoa, good evening. Kiwis in desperate need of life-saving drugs are celebrating tonight after the government announced a monster funding boost for medicine buying agency Pharmac. It'll get an extra $604 million over the next 4 years. It will fund 54 new drugs and help 175,000 patients in the next 12 months. Now, National had specified 13 new cancer drugs that it wanted funded. Under this package, only 7 of those will be funded, but the remainder will be replaced by alternative drugs that are either as good or better. There will also be an extra 13 cancer drugs funded, along with a further 28 drugs for other conditions. It's a response to an outcry from patients after the promised drugs weren't funded in the budget. Political editor Jenna Lynch has the details.
Patients like Vicky Hudson-Craig were hanging off every word of the Prime Minister today.
So today we are very proud to be making a health announcement.
As the government announced it would pour $600 million into Pharmac to fulfil its cancer drug promise.
We are delivering on our promise to support Kiwis fighting cancer.
Vicky has stage 4 melanoma. The treatment she's on is unfunded and one of the 13 promised by National on the election campaign. She's currently paying more than $5,000 a month for it herself. Her drug wasn't among those named today.
Really pleased for Pharmac and for New Zealand in general, but on a personal level, a little confused and uncertain still.
We could have done things and communicated things a little bit better, but I just say to you, this is a substantive, significant, over-the-top investment that we're making here that I think will absolutely transform many Kiwis' lives.
It's, it's life or death that I need to be on that drug, and they appealed to people like me, friends and family of mine, people that we know that voted purely because of this policy.
The promise was a glaring omission from this year's budget, and ministers have been scrambling behind the scenes to come up with a fix to the quite complex policy problem. Because Pharmac's independent from politicians, the government cannot specify which treatments it should fund. Pharmac has a wait list of drugs it wants to fund. It's ranked, but the rankings are secret for commercial reasons. So to fund the specific drugs the government wants to, it needed to give Pharmac enough money to fund all the drugs ranked ahead of the 13 promised.
Finally, we start to bridge the gap between New Zealand and the countries we like to compare ourselves with in terms of medicine funding. This uplift is enormous.
Blood cancers like leukemia were excluded from National's initial promise, and treatment for those will now be covered by the additional 13. The other 28 drugs cover conditions like infections, osteoporosis, sexual health, mental health, dermatology and respiratory and inflammatory conditions. Malcolm Mulholland has been campaigning for better access to drugs for 5 years.
There are a lot of faces of patients, both those who are no longer with us and those who are waiting for those drugs to be funded, that I can visualise right now. It's a very emotional time. This is great news.
Great news for a lot of patients, but there's inevitably those who will miss out. Maggie Ngatai has advanced breast cancer.
There is no mention of the drug that I need. They did just mention breast cancer. The energy that it takes to deal with the financing side takes away from the healing side.
7 of the 13 medicines National promised are on Pharmac's waitlist, so could be funded quickly, with the first available from October or November. However, the others need more clinical advice, or Pharmac hasn't received applications for them. That's where Vicky's drug sits. For those ones, the government has pledged to fund an equal or better alternative.
I can't give a commitment as to when those 6 might be able to come forward, but we do know that we'll start deploying the whole package October, November.
Anyone that's living with cancer knows that time is critical, and that you don't know how long you've got, and you don't know how long the drugs will work. So yesterday was too long, really.
But the wait continues.
Well, Jenna joins us now. Kia ora, Jenna. This has ended up as a massive under-promise, over-deliver situation. Do you think that was the intention?
In a word, no. National, there was no real way to fulfil its promise of 13 cancer drugs and maintain the integrity of Pharmac without going down this route, without pumping a bunch of money into Pharmac to fund those other drugs, but any speculation that it was by design should be met with caution. National has apologised for its communication of this policy and should be probably asking some questions going forward as to whether or not it should ever promise specific drugs again. The proximity to last month's budget and the fact that they have had to book this against next year's budget indicates to us that this was rushed together in the face of a backlash that they just were not expecting. Having said all that, politics aside, today is a day to celebrate for patients and patient advocates across the country. This announcement will be able to clear over half of the 90-long wait list that is currently sitting with Pharmac. It really is a game changer for medicine access in New Zealand.
Political Editor General Lynch, tēnā koe.